there's evidence that the US Trump administration used AI tools, possibly ChatGPT, possibly another similar model or models, to generate the numbers they used to justify a recent wave of new tariffs on the country's allies and enemies. It was also recently reported that Democratic mayoral candidate Andrew Cuomo used AI-generated text and citations in a plan he released called Addressing New York's Housing Crisis. In this case, is a bit more of a slam dunk, as whomever put the plan together for him seems to have just copy-pasted snippets from the ChatGPT interface without changing or checking them, which is increasingly common for all of us, as such interfaces are beginning to replace even search engine results, like those provided by Google. But it's also a practice that's generally frowned upon as, and this is noted even in the copy provided alongside many such tools and their results, these systems provide a whole lot of flawed and false and incomplete and otherwise not advisable to use data. In some cases flubbing numbers or introducing bizarre grammatical inaccuracies, but in other cases making up research or scientific papers that don't exist, but presenting them the same as they would real-deal papers or studies. And there's no way to know without actually going and checking what each of these things serve up, which can, for many people at least, take a long while. So a lot of people don't do this, including many politicians and their administrations. They don't check the data that these tools give them, and that results in publishing made-up, baseless numbers, and in some cases, wholesale fabricated claims. This is not great for many reasons, including that it can reinforce our existing biases. If you want to slap a bunch of tariffs on a bunch of trading partners, you can ask an AI to generate some numbers that justify those high tariffs, and it will do what it can to help. It's the ultimate yes man, depending on how you word your queries, and it will do this even if your ask is not great or truthful or in some other way ideal. These tools can also help users spiral down conspiracy rabbit holes, can cherry-pick real studies to make it seem as if something that isn't true is true, and it can help folks who are writing books or producing podcasts come up with just so stories that seem to support a particular preferred narrative, but which actually don't, and which maybe are not even real or accurate as presented. What's more, there's also evidence that some nation-states, including Russia, are engaging in what's called LLM grooming, which basically means seeding false information to sources that they know these models, which are mostly LLM-based, large language model-based, are trained on, so that said models will spit out inaccurate information that serves their intended ends. This is similar to flooding social networks with misinformation and bots that seem to be people from the US or some other country whose elections they hope to influence. That bot apparently a person who supports a particular cause, but in reality is run by someone in North Macedonia or within Russia's own borders. Or maybe they change the Wikipedia entry and hope that no one changes it back. But instead of polluting social networks or wikis with such misinfo, LLM grooming maybe means churning out websites with high SEO, search engine optimization rankings, which then pushes those sites up to the top of search results, which in turn makes it more likely that they will be scraped and rated highly by AI systems that gather some of their data and understanding of the world, if you want to call it that, from these sources. Over time, this can lead to more AI bots parroting Russia's preferred interpretation, their propaganda, about things like their invasion of Ukraine, and that in turn can slowly nudge the public's perception on such matters. Maybe someone who asks ChatGPT about Russia's invasion of Ukraine after hearing someone who supports Russia claiming that it was all Ukraine's fault, and they are told by ChatGPT, which would seem to be an objective source of such information, being an AI bot, that Ukraine in fact brought it upon themselves, or is in some way actually the aggressor, which would serve Russia's geopolitical purposes. None of which is true, but it could start to seem more true to some people because of that poisoning of the AI-based informational well. So there are some issues of large geopolitical consequence roiling in the AI space right now. But some of the most impactful issues related to this collection of technologies are somewhat smaller in scale today, but have the potential to disrupt entire industries as they scale up. And that's what I'd like to talk about today, focusing especially on a few recent stories related to AI and its growing influence in creative industries. You're listening to Let's Know Things. I'm Colin Wright. I'm able to keep this show ad-free because of support from listeners like you. If you're finding value in what I'm doing here, consider becoming a paid supporter for the cost of a cup of coffee each month at letsknowthings.com. And as a thank you for your helping me keep this show solvent, you'll receive an additional bonus More Things episode each month. All right, let's get back to the show. There's a popular meme that's been shuffling around social media for a year or two, and a version of it shared by an author named Joanna Maciejewski in a post on X goes like this, quote, "You know what the biggest problem with pushing all things AI is? Wrong direction. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not for AI to do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes." End quote. It could be argued, of course, that we already have technologies that do our laundry and dishes, and that AI has the capacity to make both of those machines more efficient and effective, especially in terms of helping manage and moderate increasingly renewables-heavy electrical grids. But the general concept here resonates with a lot of people, I think. Why are some of the biggest AI companies seemingly dead set on replacing creative people who are already often suffering from financial precarity, but who generally enjoy their work or at least find it satisfying? Instead of focusing on automating away the drudgery many of us suffer in the work that pays our bills, in our maintenance of our homes, and in how we get around, work on our health, and so on. Why not automate the tedious and painful stuff rather than the pleasurable stuff, basically? I think looking at the industry more broadly, you can actually see AI creeping up on all of these spaces, painful and pleasurable. But generative AI tools like ChatGPT and its peers seem to be especially good at generating text and images, in part because it's optimized for communication, being a chatbot interface over a collection of more complex tools. And most of our entertainments operate in similar and adjacent spaces, using words, using images. These are all things that overlap with the attributes that make for a useful and convincing chatbot. The AI tools that produce music from scratch, writing the lyrics and producing the melodies and incorporating different instruments, working in different genres, the whole soup to nuts process are based on similar principles to AI systems that work with large sets of linguistic training data to produce purely language-based written outputs. Feed an AI system gobs of music, and it can learn to produce music at the prompting of a user then. And the same seems to be true of other types of content, from images to movies to video games. This newfound capacity to spit out works that, for all their flaws, would have previously required a whole lot of time and effort to produce, is leading to jubilation in some spaces, but concern and even outright terror in others. I did an episode not long ago on so-called vibe coding, about people who in some cases cannot code at all, but who are producing entire websites and apps and video games and other products just by learning how to interact with these AI tools appropriately. And these vibe coders are having a field day with these tools. The same is increasingly true of people without any music chops who want to make their own songs. Folks with musical backgrounds often get more out of these tools, same as coders tend to get more from vibe coding, in part because they know what to ask for, and in part because they can edit what they get on the other end, making it better and tweaking the output to make it more their own. But people without movie-making skills can also type what they want into a box and have these tools spit out a serviceable movie on the other end. And that is leading to a change similar to what happened when less fiddly guns were introduced to the battlefield. You no longer needed to have super well-trained soldiers to defeat your enemies. You could just hand them a gun and teach them to shoot and reload it, and you'd do pretty well. You could even defeat some of your contemporaries who had much better trained and more experienced soldiers, but who had not yet made the jump to these types of gunpowder weapons. There are many aspects to this story, and many gray areas that are not as black and white as, for instance, a non-coder suddenly being able to outcode someone who worked really hard to become a decent coder, or someone who knows nothing about making music, creating some real bops with the aid of these tools that rival those of actual musicians and singers who have worked their whole life to be able to do the same. There have been stories about actors, for instance, selling their likenesses to studios and companies that work with studios, those likenesses then used by clients of those companies, often without the actor's go-ahead. For some, this might be a pretty good deal, as that actor is still free to pursue the work that they want to do. They're free to make their art while this AI copy of them does the dishes, basically. So their likeness can go out and be used in the background for a fee, some of that fee going to the actor as a royalty, with no additional work necessary on their part. Their likeness then becomes an asset that they would not have otherwise had, not to be used and rented out in that capacity at least. And thus, for some, this might be a welcome development. This has, in some cases, though, resulted in situations in which said actor discovers that their likeness is being used to hawk products that they would never want to be involved with, like online scams and bogus health cures. They still receive a payment for that use of their image, but they realize that they have little or no control over how and when and for what purposes this asset is being used. And because of the financial precarity that many creatives in particular experience as a result of how their industries work, a lot of people, actors and writers and singers and otherwise, would probably jump at the chance to make some money, even if the terms are abusive and long-term, maybe not in their best interest. Similar tools and similar financial arrangements are being used and made in the publishing world. An author named Manjari Sharma wrote her first book, an enemies to lovers style romance, in a series of installments that she published on the free fanfic platform Wattpad during the height of the COVID pandemic. She added it to another similar platform, Inkitt, once it was finished, and it garnered a lot of attention and praise on both. As a result of all that attention, the folks behind Inkitt suggested she move it from their free platform to their premium platform, Galatea, which would allow Sharma to earn a portion of the money gleaned from her work. The platform told her they wanted to turn the book into a series in early 2024, but that she would only have a few weeks to complete the next book if she accepted their terms. She was busy with work, so she accepted their offer to hire a ghostwriter to produce the sequel, as they told her she'd still receive a cut of the profits, and the fan response to the sequel was muted. They didn't like it, said it had a different vibe, was not well written, just wasn't very good. It lacked the magic of the original, basically. Now, she was earning extra money from that sequel, but no one enjoyed it, and she didn't feel great about that. And Galatea then told Sharma that they would make a video series based on the books for their new video app, totaling 49 episodes, each of them a few minutes long. And again, they would handle everything. She would just sit back and collect royalties. And the royalty money she was earning was a lot less than what traditional publishers offer, but it was enough that she was earning more from those royalties than from her actual bank job. And the company, due to the original deal she made when she posted the book to their service, they had the right to do basically anything they wanted with it anyway. So she was kind of stuck either way, and at least taking this approach, she earned some money from it. So she knew that she had to go along with whatever they wanted to do and was mostly just trying to benefit from the imbalance wherever possible. What she did not realize, though, was that the company was using AI tools as the ghostwriter. And according to the company's CEO, this allows them to, quote, iterate on the stories, end quote, that they publish, which basically means using AI to produce sequels and video content for successful human-written books. As a result of this approach, they have just one head of editorial and 5 so-called story intelligence analysts on staff, along with some freelancers, all of them working with AI tools to handle books and supplementary content written by about 400 authors. Now, as a business model, it is hard to compete with this approach. As a customer, at the moment at least, with today's tools and our approach to using them, this is often less than ideal. Some AI chatbots are helpful, but many of them are kind of just in the way. They gatekeep, so a company can hire fewer customer service human beings, saving the business money at the customer's expense. That seems to be the case with this book's sequel, too. And many of the people paying to read these things, these AI-generated sequels and other content, assumed they were written by humans, only to find after the fact that they were really just very mediocre AI-generated knockoffs. There's a lot of money flooding into this space, predicated in part on the promise of being able to replicate currently quite expensive people, like those that have to be hired and those who own intellectual property, like the rights to books and the ideas and characters they contain, or their image that they use to act in movies or in plays. And the idea is that they want to replace these expensive people with near-free versions of the same. The AI tools that they use doing similar enough work alongside a human skeleton crew, and that model promises crazy profits by earning approximately the same level of revenue as a fully human-populated business, but with dramatically reduced expenses. Now, the degree to which this will actually pan out is still an open question, as even putting aside the moral and economic quandaries associated with what all these creative people will do if they're being replaced in this way, and the legal argument that these AI companies are basically scooping up all intellectual property and saying that they should be allowed to do this, despite all the potential copyright violations that this entails. Even setting all of that aside, the quality differential is pretty real in some spaces right now. And while AI tools do seem to have a lot of promise for all sorts of things, there's also a chance that the eventual costs of operating them and building out the necessary infrastructure to keep them going will fail to afford those promised financial benefits, at least in the short term, and enough customers will be turned off by the fairly mediocre product that a lot of these things spit out on the other end currently, that they do not come back around and put their trust and money into business models that offer the same but better quality products in the future. The book I'd like to recommend today is called New Cold Wars: China's Rise, Russia's Invasion, and America's Struggle to Defend the West by David E. Sanger. This is a useful book for understanding a lot of the big picture geopolitical happenings right now. And like any such book, some of it is outdated already because of the recent election in the United States and some other maneuverings and happenings. This is not a details on the ground sort of book. This is a let's understand the why of all of this and the larger forces swirling around that have led to the circumstances that are influencing all of these things today. It's not looking at the geopolitical weather, it's looking at the geopolitical climate. Now, if any of that sounds interesting to you, consider picking up a copy of New Cold Wars by David E. Sanger. Let's Know Things is a listener-supported show. I don't make any money from ads, only what listeners contribute by becoming paid supporters at letsknowthings.com. If you're not in the position to become a paid supporter at the moment, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your pods. Those help get the show in front of more people and lend a hint of credibility to independently made shows like this one. A huge thanks in advance, whatever shape your support might take.